Tighten your lines as we get ready to sail the seven seas on the Political Pirate Podcast. Join Captain Ted Yoho and the salty dog John Martin as they search far and wide for the greatest treasure of all, the truth. From local Florida news to nationwide stories and the globe beyond, we've got it all mapped out. Now here's your hosts, the salty dog John Martin and Captain Ted Yoho.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the 3Ps, the Political Pirate Podcast, with your host here, the old salty dog, John Martin, and the captain of our pirate ship, none other than Mr. Ted Yoho. Good morning, Ted. How are you?
I'm doing great, John. How are you? I'm doing good. It is Friday, and a lot going on, and look forward to getting right into the show.
Absolutely. Let me start something here. I just got to start our little clock here. All right, you know, the beauties of live TV or live podcast, however you want to put it. Well, before we get into the show real quick, in case people are just waking up, broke out literally overnight. They found that shooter from the Brown University, right, and apparently he shot that MIT professor as well. That's still under investigation, but they found him with a self-inflicted gun wound in I guess a mini storage facility that he was using somewhere in Massachusetts. Or no, it was actually in New Hampshire. So thank God they found him. Thank God he's not killed anymore. Too bad they couldn't have done something sooner. Maybe that MIT professor would still be alive. But the one thing that has kind of come out of this to me, Ted, and I'd love to hear your comments on it, is the way they do these press conferences now where the politicians are kind of hell-bent on being up there. I wish they would divide that up a little differently, because the law enforcement needs to focus on the law enforcement and the politicians on the politics. But when they blend the two, I think it leads to confusion myself. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's self-serving a lot of times. I mean, in politicians, they want to show that they're really concerned about the issue, which they should be, but it shouldn't be a platform for them to get out there so they can put it on their web page and, you know, fundraise off of it. If you're doing it out of the purity of purpose and standing with law enforcement, but give the microphone to the law enforcement, because let them do their job and let them explain to the public what's going on. That's really what people want to hear. They don't want to hear a politician talk on that. Those things happen when I was in Washington. They're going to continue to happen, unfortunately. And I always felt uncomfortable to even making a comment about it because it becomes political. If you're an elected official and you say something, it's a political statement. And, you know, I try to shy away from that. I'm guilty of it as everybody else, but I sure didn't like doing it.
Yeah, I totally understand it. And I don't want to get too far in the weeds on it because there's a lot going to be revealed. But once again, at least preliminary, it sounds like it fits the narrative of the left. So it'll be interesting. And when I say that, I mean, this person seems to be a leftist from what little bit we know right now, but it'll be interesting to see how they cover it based on the politics or not of the individual. Well, you know what? That seems to drive the news cycle.
You know what I was thinking too, John? When you see in our country these kind of incidents, it seems a lot of times like it's a deranged individual that's doing this. But when you see like what happened in Australia, what happened in England, what happened in some of these other countries, it's all politically and ideologically driven. And that happens here too. But it seems like we have more in our country, just the deranged person that's out there doing these things.
Yeah, it could be mainly because it seems like the demonization of people in politics. I think that has a lot to do with it. You know, we instead of just debating issues, we want to seem to demonize the other side. And both sides do it to a certain extent. I think the left has been over the top with it because they like try to one up anything. I mean, Donald Trump, for instance, he calls people names. He does a lot of things like that I wish that he would not do. And we'll talk some about that in the next part of the story. But the left just seems to go right for Nazis, fascists, that kind of thing, white supremacists. They go to the extreme and demonize people. And it seems like that is a trigger.
Go back to George Floyd. I mean, they idolize this person, and made him, almost like just a savior of the world. And this guy was a thug that should never have been on the street. But they rally around him to make him a hero for I don't know who they made him a hero for, but it was racism. It was this, it was, going against the downtrodden. And they idolize people like that. And then they even want to attack Charlie Kirk and how bad he was, but they'll elevate somebody like George Floyd or the fellow out in Missouri. What was his name? Michael Brown, I think it was.
Yeah.
And
don't hands up,
rally around. They're rallying around,
which he never did.
Yeah, right. And it just shows the divide in this country. And then the left capitalizes on this, but it divides this country. It's not bringing this country together. And I'll turn it back over to you.
Well, yeah. So we're going to get into the president did an address a couple of days ago, a national address, and I think it's a very important. There's some aspects of the speech I like, some that maybe I didn't, but I think it's important mainly because it kind of sets up what I think President Trump's strategy is going to be for the midterm and all of that going forward. So I think for that reason alone, it was extremely important. And we're going to play some clips and break it down. One thing about it that stands out automatically, I believe it's the shortest speech that Donald Trump has ever given. It was roughly 18 minutes and change long. And I think that actually helped him myself. But we're going to play the first opening snippets of it.
Are you saying less is more?
I think less is more focused for sure. Let's put it that way.
Less distracting.
And one thing about it, Chad, let's talk about it a little bit before we play the video. The thing about Donald Trump, love him, hate him, or whatever, the American people know Donald Trump. So he doesn't really need to spend a whole lot of time introducing himself to the American people or to the world. So that's why I like the shortness of the speech, because sometimes Donald Trump is on the Trump train, so to speak, and people already know Donald Trump. They're going to make up their minds now, I think, based on the results and where they feel like the country is going, period. They're either going to vote for him at the end of the day or they're not. And when I say vote for him, I mean the Republican agenda in Congress and all that. And we need to make sure people understand that. But what are your general thoughts about the speech? And then we'll go in and break it down a little bit.
Well, I think it was Trumpism. He tooted his own horn, this is the best. It's never been like this. And, I think we can all live without that. Just, give me the facts, what's happening, where we're going, and talk about where we're heading. But I thought he brought out some good points in there. But I thought like you said, he went into some areas, I think people know that he inherited a terrible thing, but we don't have to constantly remind people it was Biden, it was Biden, it was Biden. And then the braggadocious of him, if that's correct pronunciation, I think people are tired of. We realize what's going on, and then the inflation and the affordability, those are real things, and he's finally addressing that. But I think he's missing the mark. You're not going to change this around. This is an accumulation of bad decisions over the last 30 years. And, I think he needs to talk to the American people and say, listen, these things have happened. The quantitative easing, the price of gas went up under the Biden administration, which affected everything in the economy. And one person overnight is not going to change it. So you can change the direction, which he has done, lowering the gas prices and things like that. And you don't lower the gas prices as a president. You do policies that lower the gas prices, like take off the war on fossil fuels, open up more drilling areas and more permitting and expedite those. That's going to bring the cost down more than anything. But it's a transitional change that'll take years to, and you need to explain that to the American people, and I think the American people would understand that and they would appreciate that.
Absolutely. Well, let's play the opening remarks of the president's speech, because I think he sets up pretty well what he's going to talk about the rest of the 18 minutes. And we're not going to play the whole 18, by the way, just snippets, but let's play it. We'll come back and talk about it.
Good evening, America. 11 months ago, I inherited a mess, and I'm fixing it. When I took office, inflation was the worst in 48 years, and some would say in the history of our country, which caused prices to be higher than ever before, making life unaffordable for millions and millions of Americans. This happened during a Democrat administration, and it's when we first began hearing the word affordability. Our border was open, and because of this, our country was being invaded by an army of 25 million people, many who came from prisons and jails, mental institutions, and insane asylums. They were drug dealers, gang members, and even 11,888 murderers, more than 50% of whom killed more than one person. This is what the Biden administration allowed to happen to our country, and it can never be allowed to happen again. We had men playing in women's sports, transgender for everybody, crime at record levels with law enforcement, and words such as that just absolutely forbidden.
Yeah, and there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. He starts out really well. Most of the speech was good. You kind of touched on this a little bit, Ted. I do believe that it's time to move on from Joe Biden, because he mentioned Biden specifically. He missed the previous administration several times, but Biden specifically, of my count, like 7 times during this speech. And I think people get it already. Like I say, they know Donald Trump. We think we know Joe Biden. And certainly after the first of the year, whatever happens, right or wrong, it's Donald Trump's economy. It's Donald Trump's presidency now. And that's the way people are going to judge it, I think, rightly or wrongly.
No, I think you're right. You can't dwell in the past. I mean, you and I have lived long enough that what happened, I can't change that. It's like the argument over reparations. I didn't do it. I wasn't there. It was terrible that it happened. It was an injustice. We went to had a civil war to right it. 700,000 people died. African Americans got their freedom. But we can't dwell in what happened. We don't want to forget it, so we don't repeat it. But you know what? Modern day slavery is still going on around the world. In pornography, in the sex trade, that's modern day slavery right here in America. And so to sit there and argue over these things that happened in the past, let's acknowledge that. Let's do what we can to prevent it and move forward. And that's what President Trump, I wish he would focus more on where we're going as a nation. And he talked about that some, wages are going up, inflation is down, but yet it's not percolated down to the people to where they can say, you know what, this is great. And again, it's not going to happen overnight. The direction of the country has changed for the better, but it's only going to be good if he wins, if the Republicans win the majority in the House and the Senate, or maintain that. If he loses that, it's going to be a mess.
Yeah, that needs to be his sole focus for sure, as far as politically speaking. And one thing I will say that I'm glad, and maybe it was because he only had 18 minutes or whatever, because if he had 30, this would have come up. He didn't say a thing about the 2020 election, or the 2020. Yeah, he didn't say anything about that, which I'm really glad, because, there's plenty to talk about, but he doesn't need to bring it up. He won. He's there. He's only going to be there 3 more years. I'm not even worried about, a third term. That's all nonsense. It's not going to happen. And he needs to make the most of this. What happened in 2020 is completely irrelevant to his current presidency. It may be in dealing with voter fraud and election integrity and all that, but that's something other people can do and states need to do and all of that. Donald Trump, I think we get it. We don't need to hear it anymore from him, and I'm glad he did not mention it.
Well, he did. I had that list of the 5 or 6 existential threats to America, and we've talked a lot about it. Debt is number 1. China is number 2. Energy independence was number 3. Border security back under Biden was number 3. And you look at what Trump has done, his energy policies have brought down the price of gas. Biden's energy policies absolutely drove them up. That has affected everything, John, in our economy. And so that transition to where we are now, the effects of that will be 2-3 years down the road. They're starting already. The other thing was border. We didn't have border security. And if you don't have border security, you don't have a secure nation. We have border security, and it is ugly what's going on in America right now. But you have to do that to weed out the bad actors in here. And the bad actors were in here from the terrible policies of Biden. And Biden was just nothing but a puppet for Obama. And Obama, keep in mind, he was the one that wanted to fundamentally transform America. He did it, and we were in that process, and had Harris won with Tim Walz. God help us. And keep in mind, Obama, in his book, Dreams of My Father, he says if it comes down to a war between cultures, he's got to side with his Muslim Brotherhood. And that tells you who this guy is. And then you look at the transformation in America. Look what happened in New York. Look at what happened in these countries. Look at the rise of the Muslim community. And I've got nothing against Muslims, but by God, you need to assimilate and adopt American laws. If not, you're not welcomed here. And I don't care what culture you are, what religion. We're Americans, and you came here for a reason. Adapt to it, just like every other ethnic group that's come to America, and become Americans. You're not going to run another country with an enemy. And then you've got to worry about your adversaries. We're already at war with China in different realms, whether it's rare earth minerals, whether it's pharmaceuticals, whether it's their incursion around the world, getting their ideology out from Africa to Latin America to here in America. And the influx of the 600,000 students that Trump is allowing, I think it's a huge misstep. But those are the things we should be focusing on, because the number one task of a government is national defense. And you can't do that if you have open borders or people coming in, and if you have a debt that's crippling your decisions. Sorry, I went long.
No, that's okay. I think what we could do is go ahead, because I really want to spend some more time on this speech, and we're getting close to where we normally do a commercial break. So I'll tell our producer, I think we'll just go to a commercial break here, and we'll come back and we'll do a little bit deeper dive into the president's speech. Sure. So take us to break, Ted.
No, I look forward to coming back, because there are some things we need to bring out in that speech. So let's get to the break, and we'll come back and talk about those.
Although the owner of Lewis Oil Company maintains she is 29, Lewis Oil turns 60 years old in June. Chevron would like to recognize the North Florida second-generation family-owned business, celebrating its growth and staying power. Lewis Oil Company maintains significant on-hand supplies, strategically located fuel depots, a delivery fleet, on-site service, fuel card locks, and convenience stores. Lewis Oil Company understands its responsibility in the local economy by providing service and delivery on demand and in crisis. As a first responder for 18 Florida counties and the Southeast from Texas to Virginia, we are proud of this rare accomplishment. Lewis Oil delivers.
This is Ward Scott, and I want to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. The Ward Scott Files premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care.
Meldon Law, the only official injury partner of the Florida Gators.
The Ward Scott Files Gold sponsors are Lewis Oil Company,
Shoot GTR,
On the Spot Dry Cleaners, R&R Construction, and Style Cuts. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, you can visit our website, www.wardscottfiles.com, and click on the Advertise Here banner on the right side of the page, or call my friend Freddie at 352-284-3733. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the Ward Scott Files. And remember, if you like the show, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. May God have mercy on your soul.
Or that very much surprises me that you've never been tased.
You can't handle the truth!
All bees poop.
A warthog. He's going to come up the steps. Here he comes. Oh my goodness, and he's huge. Hello, boy. I wonder if we can pet him. Hi, boy.
Can we touch him? No, don't.
Help me! Help! Help!
And we're back to the 3 Ps, the Political Pirate Podcast, with your host, the old salty dog, John Martin, and the captain of our pirate ship, none other than Mr. Ted Yoho.
You're so kind. Glad to be here. Go on.
Absolutely. When we went to break, we were talking about Donald Trump's address to the nation a couple of nights ago. And we're going to break it down even more. But I want to play this next snippet, and I call it They're Not Laughing Now, and you'll see why in a minute. But this probably was the part of the speech that I actually liked the most. So let's play it, and we'll come back and talk about it.
But they're not laughing anymore. Over the past 11 months, we have brought more positive change to Washington than any administration in American history. There's never been anything like it, and I think most would agree. I was elected in a landslide, winning the popular vote and all 7 swing states and everything else, with a mandate to take on a sick and corrupt system that really just took the wealth from people and crushed the dreams of the American people. For the last 4 years, the United States was ruled by politicians who fought only for insiders, illegal aliens, career criminals, corporate lobbyists, prisoners, terrorists, and above all, foreign nations, which took advantage of us at.
Well, I think he really set up in that part of it what he's done in the last 11 months and what he's planning to do right there. And I love how he said that we were basically a laughing stock, because I think in many areas we were, but they're not laughing now. And one of the things you mentioned in a previous show, Ted, was how you were talking to somebody, I think in Mongolia, if I remember right, when they told you that the thing about President Trump is they don't know what he's going to do. And that's actually a very powerful tool.
No, it was North Korea.
North Korea. I knew it was somewhere over there.
Their highest defecting ambassador, Yoho. And it's true. You know, he has made a strong stance. You know, you look at Biden, you look at Obama, people just rolled over them on foreign policy. They were all apologetic for America, especially Obama. And of course, Biden the same way, because he was controlled by Obama. And Trump, they know not to mess with him in certain areas. Now, I don't want to get into the Russian and Ukraine, because that's something we need to talk about on another time. Could spend a couple of shows on that one. But he has made a strong stance. I think the thing when you look at it is border. I mean, there's no doubt people know where he stands on the border. Immigration, there's no doubt they know where he stands on that. NATO, they know where he stands on that, and he's been tough on them in the European Union, which they needed. So those all made America stronger. But there's some, I mean, no president's going to be 100%, and nobody will be in agreement with him. It's the direction of the nation that he's taking us from the direction that we were heading into, which America would not survive a Biden-Walz administration. And I know we're going to talk about AOC towards the end and J.D. Vance, and I've got some comments on it.
I bet you do. Well, you know, a thought has occurred to me, and you kind of triggered it again, but I've been thinking a little bit of, that's your job, right? Yeah, Donald Trump, what he did at the border and the time frame he did it was amazing. But I've often thought that maybe if he had struggled with it a bit more, or it had taken a little bit longer, I think people might have actually given him more credit. He did it so fast that people were amazed by it. And I think people have kind of forgotten how chaotic it was just, 10, 11 months ago, because he literally solved it. It seemed like overnight.
Well, it really is. And it's chaotic looking now, with ICE and Custom Border Patrol running around doing their raids that they should never have had it done had the previous presidents closed the border, and Trump did that in the first one. But go back just at the beginning, at the end of the Biden administration, look at how many hotels in New York City had been taken over by immigrants and the American taxpayer, we're paying for it. When our veterans can't get benefits and things like that, we're giving all this benefits to these foreigners that came into the country illegally. Look at how it was in Colorado with Trade de Agua taking over hotels and condominium complexes. Look at what happened in Minnesota with the Somalians, because they just let these people in. The Democrats in charge, Tim Walz, let that go on up there. And Trump comes in and says no more. And it is messy cleaning it up, but it needed to be cleaned up. And, for that reason, I think he needs to stay in there for, and maintain a majority. Keep in mind, people, if he loses, all this goes away. They will impeach him in the House. If they get the Senate, they will impeach him in the Senate. There is no doubt about that. They're foaming at the mouth right now to have that majority. And this is why we have to become educated, motivated, and activated. If not, the direction of this country, like it or not, it's the better direction of the two. And it's on a correction course. But if Trump loses the midterms, this will go back into chaos like it was under Biden.
Yeah, well, they just had a vote recently. If you want to see just how crazy Congress, especially the Democrats are, Ted, I think just this past week, they voted 2 weeks ago about impeachment, and a huge number of Democrats voted against it, right? And I said then that don't be misled by that. But they just had a vote that if you want to know how whatever crazy they are, they put forward a bill, the Republicans did, to ban transgender surgery on minors. And over 200 Democrats voted against it. So that just shows how radical they are. They want to actually have mutilation, genitals removed from minors. So that tells you right now that vote about impeachment was all for show, because their heart is more in that vote they did about the transgender surgery, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, what's that saying? If you want to see somebody's true feelings, look at their actions. And I think that just illustrated that very well, John. And they're just waiting to get back into power, and all hell's going to break loose. You're going to have all kinds of Rachel Levines and Sam Britton throughout our government. And, you've heard me talk about this before. I've been out of Congress for 4 years, and I was still getting calls from ambassadors from around the world saying how the LGBT and the gay pride, all these parades that were going on in these foreign countries, some of them Muslim countries that don't subscribe to that thought or theory, they were really damaging America's credibility and driving a wedge between us and that country. And it's hard enough to try to have a relationship with another country that has different ideologies, but you have to have a certain amount of that to maintain peace and create allies. And Trump got rid of USAID, which needed to happen, and he did it harshly. But as I said in the committee when I testified in front of Congress, there's not an easy way to do it, and it's ripping the Band-Aid off. You want it ripped off slowly or fast? You got to rip it off fast, because he's got a 2-year window. If he loses that window, it'll never happen, and you'll never get the reforms that we've had. And these are good reforms, and we'll bring back the good programs.
And if people think that like the woke stuff and all is dead now, it's only dead because of Donald Trump.
It's on pause.
Right, because I don't know if you saw this or not. I don't have the video. People can look it up. But the NEA, just this week, the National Education Association, which I believe is the largest teachers union, they had this symposium, and they were talking about pronouns and all of that kind of stuff. And they literally said that we, talking about the American people or their organization, these are teachers now, said that when they start talking about America or the United States, they don't need to say America or the United States. They need to phrase it. I believe the phrase was in what we call America or in what we call the United States of America. You had to put all of that verbiage before you just said United States or America, what we now call or whatever like that.
I mean
that just shows you.
I mean, that shows you the direction they want to take us in. Their whole goal over the last since really Obama, was to minimize America and bring it down to its knees. And Ilhan Omar, when she first came into Congress, was The only way you're going to fix this is to destroy the system and rebuild it. Whose image do you want it rebuilt in? You know, look at Zoran Madani. When he won that election, who did he give praise to and quote? It was the founder of the Democrat Socialist Party, the communists in America. And he says, finally, his dream has come true. They're not quoting Thomas Jefferson. They're not quoting the founding fathers. They're quoting the founder of a communist organization here in America. That's who these people are, and that's who they want to lead this country to. And I'll be damned if that's going to happen on our watch.
Yeah, we're going to give it everything we got to prevent it. I can tell you that for sure. But I want to play another snippet here of Donald Trump's speech, and I label it "Fight for the American People" because I really love what he said right here. So let's play that, and we'll come back and talk about it.
President who fights for the law-abiding, hardworking people of our country, the ones who make this nation run, who make this nation work. And after just 1 year, we have achieved more than anyone could have imagined. Starting on day one, I took immediate action to stop the invasion of our southern border. For the past 7 months, 0 illegal aliens have been allowed into our country, a feat which everyone said was absolutely impossible. Do you remember when Joe Biden said that he needed Congress to pass legislation?
I don't know about you, Ted, but I really believe that right there needs to be Donald Trump's message through the midterms right there. Fighting for the American people, putting America first, fighting for your jobs, fighting for the American people, period. That's what he needs to talk about. I'm not saying he doesn't need to do other things, but that needs to be the focus of the midterms, in my view.
It really is. And there is no doubt that this president loves this country. I mean, he doesn't have to do this. Guy's a billionaire. I mean, he could just ignore this, but he cares and loves this country too much, unlike Obama. You know, I can't get off of Obama because of his hatred for this country. You know, doing the apology tour, going around the world saying, oh, we're so sorry for all the problems we caused. You know, you look at Obama and contrast him. I don't know. Can you guys see this?
Yeah,
this
yeah.
Trump hugging the American flag, and that is his underlying feeling about this country. You know, and there's just there's no other way to describe him as far as his underlying motives. It is to save this country, the golden age of America, and he's living it. I mean, he got 2 assassination attempts, and he's still out there in the public. You know, it's just, we need to support him, because to support anybody else with another ideology on the left, you're supporting the destruction of America. Explain that to your grandchildren. Grandpa, did you used to live in America when it was a free country? Yeah, it was really great. You know, what did you do to prevent it from going to where I am and living in this hellhole? So,
yeah, I hear you. What did you do? Yeah, absolutely.
And what did you do? Did you get educated, motivated, and activated?
Activated. There you go. So in the middle, he talked of his speech. He talked about prices coming down. He also talked about peace through strength, which we've talked a lot about. That I really like that.
That's the number one goal of America. I mean, that's the number one goal of the country: peace and strength and security.
But when it comes to the part about prices going down and all, and I don't blame him for, you know, putting the facts out there. It was interesting that some of the networks, I don't know if you caught this or not, but some of them showed the charts and some of them didn't. You know, they didn't. So I thought that was kind of interesting choice. But let me just tell you about my concerns about the way he talks about prices. Because, you know, there's a saying that feelings aren't facts, and that's true. Absolutely true. And he's putting facts out there. But I think that people quite often are motivated more by their feelings than they are by facts.
Sure.
And so I think you got to be careful. You want to put the facts out there, but you don't want to tell people what they should be feeling, because they feel what they feel. And like I've said many times, an example is the recession versus depression. A recession is when your neighbor loses his job. A depression is when you lose your job. So if you're feeling like you're struggling, it doesn't matter what everybody else feels, you're struggling. And so I think Donald Trump's got to walk a little rope there between putting the facts out and understanding that the people may not be feeling exactly what he's saying.
You're absolutely right. And, it is a tightrope you have to walk. You've got to be careful what you say. The price of eggs have come down. Did President Trump do that? I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's just the market, the way the market works. We had H5N1, which we still have in this country, which is the highly pathogenic avian influenza, and they killed millions and millions of birds. So your egg production went down. And then the price of diesel and all that stuff under Biden, that drove prices up on everything. And then you had some of the trade embargoes that fixed this or added to the cost. So, I would like to see him embrace more of the movement, the direction we're going, instead of saying, I brought the prices down. Well, if you brought them down, then you can be accused of bringing them up at a later time, because of your policies. And I think you need to talk more about how the market works and educate the American people, or get them, not that they're not educated, but get them to focus on the real facts of what causes these things. But
and
he loves this country.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was great news on inflation. It's down to 2.7%.
Right.
But like we talked about, I think on our last show, that's still 2.7% on top of the inflated prices under Biden. So prices haven't really dropped. They're just not rising as fast, which is huge, to quote Donald Trump. It's huge, but people may not be feeling it when they're at the checkout aisle. And I think that President Trump needs to be aware of that. I'm not saying he's not, but there's got to be a way to convey that.
Well, and it's like, how do you turn an ocean liner around in the ocean? You don't do it fast, you do it slowly. And again, it's these policies turning it slowly, and people need to keep that in mind. And I think most people realize that we're heading in the right direction. Interest rates are coming down, fuel prices are coming down, and it's going to take time for things to adjust. And that's why Republicans, they need to keep the majority in the House and grow it in both chambers, in the House and the Senate. Because if we go back to the other direction, you're going into socialism versus, and that's just a stop in the road to communism.
Yeah, well, another thing that needs to happen too, and you were an excellent example of this when you were in Congress.
Well, thank you, John.
The senators and the members of Congress, they need to work their behinds off too. They need to be telling a story. They need to be out there, because one thing about it, love it, hate it, or whatever, AOC, Mandami, even Bernie Sanders, they campaign like their life depends on it, man. And sometimes I'm seeing, especially senators, kind of I just don't want to get out there too much. You know what I mean? And they need to be campaigning like the country depends on it, not just their seats.
And it does. The country does depend on this. And, we get too many newsletters about, oh, look what I did, but I don't see them out there leading voter drives and and having those kind of things. And of course, it's a different environment today. There's so many security risks nowadays and death threats. I flew back from Washington my last trip, and there was a representative I won't name that was on the trip. And when they got off the plane, there was 3 uniformed policemen and women escorting them out because of the death threats. And we got death threats too. And at times we had them. We had security at some of the rallies we did, or some of the town hall meetings, because of the vitriol out there. And these are real threats. And so I can understand why some of the senators and congressmen don't do live town halls, but they need to carry the message that if we lose where we are today, we're going to go back, but further than where we were under Biden.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to skip on down to what I think is going to be maybe the tell-all for the midterm elections. And Donald Trump talked a little bit about it, but the whole healthcare issue, and I'm not sure, I'm not saying that we need to go the Republican way, to this way, but if we don't find some way to resolve that aspect, I actually think, whether they deserve it or not, and I don't think they do, but the Republicans are probably going to be blamed for that, because people, when they get scared and frustrated and angry, they tend to blame those that are in power.
Right.
whether that power is perceived or real, than they do the other. Plus, you got that general feeling in midterms already. So I don't know exactly what the solution is, but they better find one, because I actually think that is going to be the emotional core issue. And the Democrats are going to try to stay focused on that, whether they can or not.
No, you brought up something before we go into that video. People respond more to emotions than they do logic. And if you can raise their emotional score or their emotional level on an issue, and you can show that you're the solution to that and that you can fix it, they're going to support you, and that'll come over logic. I mean, they'll vote their passions over their common sense sometimes, and that happens too much. And people know that today. I said, when people know that, the media knows it, the politicians know it, the technology companies know this, and they're going to appeal to your emotions. You know, somebody doesn't go out and look at, you don't buy a Volkswagen over a Cadillac because you love the Volkswagen, although that's the car you can afford. I'm talking back when the Volkswagen was cheap. You don't buy it because you love that car. You really want the Cadillac, but you can't afford it. But you're willing to buy it, put yourself in debt, a lot of debt, because it makes you feel good until you get your first payment.
Well, before we totally move on to the next topic here, I want to tell you something. So after the speech, the next 24 hours or so, I was looking through various social media platforms and stuff, just trying to get a feel for how people responded to it. And the one that jumped out at me was this person said this right here. And TDS, I wonder if it's incurable. This is, and I actually know this person, and they're normally somewhat rational. I don't agree with their politics, but let me just read you what this person said about seeing Donald Trump's speech. He said, I just watched him, and now I'm pretty sure that everything I believe, everything that defines my life, everything I've ever worked for throughout my entire life, and everything I've ever wanted for my country and my family and myself was absolutely wrong. I don't care what, love, hate Donald Trump. I don't see how you get all of that out of that speech. You could say that, hey, you know, he's wrong about this or whatever. But to me, to say that anything he said in there made you feel like that, you know, you are 180 degrees the other way, and that there was no, you know, it's just made your life seem meaningless. I don't know. TDS may be incurable there, Ted.
It really may be. And so if everything he believed in, he thinks was wrong, go back to where you were with Biden. Look at the leaders coming up in the Socialist Communist Party that hides under the word Democrat or progressives. They're communists. And look at what they're subscribing or projecting that your life will be under them. Defund the police, open borders, everything is free, right? And we know that.
Absolutely.
Because anything the government gives you, they can take away. And they will do that. And a perfect example, I think you were going to talk about the fight over the healthcare coming up, right?
I don't know if we'll get into that totally, because it's definitely an issue, no doubt
Well,
about it. Go ahead.
What I just said. The whole fight over this healthcare thing, and it comes up, I think it's January 30th is when their next fight is, funding the government. The biggest thing is going to be over the healthcare subsidies. The extra healthcare subsidies, there were already subsidies, but with COVID, the Democrats put in their extra subsidies up to $400,000 personal income. You got subsidies. Basically, insurance was free. The Republicans are just trying to take it back to where it was, where the Democrats came out to fix healthcare. They put in these subsidies, then they added subsidies on it with COVID. COVID went away, and they want to extend those. Go back to where it was. And it goes back to whatever the government gives you, they can take away. But the people on the left that gave it to you will say, look, they want to rob you of your health care. They want you to die because you don't have health care. It's all a bunch of BS. And I think the American people hopefully are smarter than that. But it doesn't sound like that person you just read is smarter than that.
And like I say, it's going to be how people feel. That don't you know that that's true. You just talked about it. But I want to move on to the idea about Islamic extremism, because it seems like it's on the rise again. And Donald Trump really knocked it pretty far in his first term. I'm not necessarily blaming it all on Biden. It's certainly back now. We're seeing evidence of it. And it's not just anti-Semitism, because anti-Semitism is rampant too. But the Islamic extremism is definitely on the rise. And, you sent an article to me, Ted, a Wall Street Journal opinion piece. And I want you to share your thoughts on why you think we need to really focus on this, because it's beyond just the violence that has occurred and might occur. It's more about the fabric of our nation if we allow this to continue. So I want to turn it over to you to kind of talk about what your fear is of Islamism coming to the United States beyond just the obvious terrorism.
Well, you've heard me talk about Samuel Huntington's books, The Clash of Civilizations. This is what's coming when we don't stand up for the principles this country was founded on and protect those with all our fortitude, the constitutional principles. What happens is you get the Islamic doctrine that comes in, the Muslim doctrine that comes in, and the honor killings that were going on. They've gone on in this country. Honor killings is where somebody in a family of Muslim faith, generally it's the female, if they do something that shames the family or the religion, that family, the patriarch, usually the father or brothers, they have a right to kill that person under Islamic law, Sharia law. They're kind of bound to that. And the danger in this country is we have freedom of religion, freedom of speech in the First Amendment. So let's take that a step further. If there's a Muslim community, which there are many, I mean, look at Somalia, look at Dearborn, Michigan. If they
and now Texas,
and Tennessee, Arizona, there's all these places. So there's encampments around the country. If they believe in Sharia law, and that's part of their religion, and our Constitution says freedom of religion, can they enact Sharia law and do honor killings, and it's okay? That's where we really need to safeguard and protect our Constitution. And I think there needs to be some reinterpretation of doing this, and we can do that. The founders are smart enough to know that they drew up these great documents that have been hailed as the greatest documents for human freedom and liberties around the globe, but yet they put in the safeguards to change them as times change. And I think this is a time we really need to look at it, because this will go to courts, and it already has, to where people have been exonerated because they have done these mercy killings or honor killings, whatever you want to call them. And they said, well, according to freedom of speech, they can do these things. Where does that end? And where do we stop that and say, no, I understand what you're saying. You can practice your religion here, but you need to follow U.S. constitutional law, period.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to give our producer a heads up. I'm only going to play one more video towards the end of the show, and that is the last one on the list there, the AOC video, for Ted's benefit. But we'll talk about the rest of this. So in about 2 weeks' time, Mandami is going to actually be the mayor of New York. And, he's talked about globalize the infantata and all that. And, of course, he was with this Reverend Wahaha or whatever.
I wouldn't call him a reverend. He's an imam.
He's an imam or whatever. Yeah, absolutely. Well, we talked about this on a previous show, but I want to reiterate something. He said this imam that Mandami was hanging out with, we might have a picture of it, I don't know if we'll put it up, but he says, I pray that one day Allah will bless us to raise an army, and I'm serious about this. He went on to say, I'm asking for us to greet the duty for jihad here in America. Now, this is one of Mandami's confidants. There's the picture of it right there. He says the duty of jihad, and you put globalize the infantata, and basically it means kill all non-believers. It's way above anti-Semitism. Even if you're totally anti-Jewish, that won't matter. I hate to tell you, but if you're not 100% Sharia law, you're on the hit list as well. And
sure are.
So we've seen what happened in Australia. But we remember we played this video. We're not going to play it now again, where they said gas the Jews and all that in Australia. But just this past year, we've had on our college campuses right there in New York City calling for globalize the intifada, which means basically kill everybody that's not an Islamic fundamentalist. People need to wake up, Ted.
This is not a game. This is not just people out there a little. It's like Ilhan Omar. Oh, something happened over there. Something happened over there when she was talking about
somebody did something somewhere.
Yeah, somebody did something somewhere. This is not somebody doing something somewhere. This is a fundamental transformation of America led by Obama and the people behind him. People need to understand how deep this is within our country, within our government. John Brenner, head of CIA, he's a Muslim. He's converted to the Muslim faith. And I'm not sure about James Clapper, but I'm thinking he did too, but don't hold me on that. But I know John Brenner did. And so he believes in Sharia law. He believes in these things. There's judges in America that believe in that, and they side with the Sharia law and the honor killings. You know, you can't have two systems in our country. It's constitutional law that gives everybody freedom of religion and rights, but you're not going to hide under the guise of freedom of religion and do these atrocities. Up in Minnesota, they have the I forget the name of the ceremony, or Iliad, I think it's called, Elihad. It's a once a year celebration, and they do animal slaughters around the world. They didn't do it in a Viking stadium in Minnesota, but they do these in other parts of the country. I mean, they're sacrificing animals in the name of their religion. So it's time for people to wake up. This is not a fad. This is not something that was here today and went away. It's not something that happened. Something happened over somewhere. It's not that. This is going on today, and it's not going away. It's on a pause right now. But if it comes back, it'll come back in spades on steroids.
Well, you mentioned those guys like Clapper, Brennan, who is a Muslim, but you're not giving enough credit to some of the Biden people, because we know Comey, for instance, he went after fanatics. He went after fanatics that parents that went before school boards and had a problem with men using the women's bathroom or boys. He went after them. He listed on the terrorism watch list him and the Department of Justice, head of Department of Justice, Merrick Garland or whatever. They went after Catholics. I mean, you're not giving them enough credit. They put Catholics on the terrorist watch list because they happen to be opposed to abortion. But so they went after fanatics, Ted.
Well, go back to Obamacare.
Of course, I'm joking, but they did.
I know. but we can't joke about this because this is real. But Obamacare, there were no religious exemptions to Obamacare. Everybody had to have it except if you're a Muslim, because they didn't believe in organized insurance. And so there was a carve out. If you're a Muslim, you didn't have to get Obamacare. And I thought a lot of people don't know that, but that's in the bill. And so, yeah, this is happening, America, and it's the frog being boiled slowly versus rapidly. And it is being boiled.
Absolutely. Well,
we're the frog.
We're just about out of time, but we're going into the weekend, and I got to give my friend Ted something to ponder. So I'm playing a video here of one of his favorite people, because if you wonder if they're serious, of course, she's joking around a little bit about here.
I don't think she is.
I want to play Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and she is asked about running for president and whether or not she's worried about JD.
You say her name almost as good as Rush Limbaugh did.
Absolutely. Alexandria, you either have to whisper it or say it really loud, the way I look at it. AOC or Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Let's play her right now.
You could beat JD Vance in a head-to-head race for president, as polling suggests, in 2028.
Listen, these polls, like 3 years out, are, they are what they are. But let the record show, I would stomp him.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Any reaction, or do you think that you'll be
So there you have it. AOC is saying, in front of the Capitol right there, that if J.D. Vance is the one, she's saying, I will wipe him out. I'll stomp him and all that. So she's just laughing and carrying on. But I'm telling you right now, she could be the next president of the United States. I mean, stranger things have happened.
God help us. God save the Queen. Keep in mind, AOC, a bartender, goes into Congress under the guise and the help of the Democrat Socialist Party of America, or the Democrat Party of America, which is a communist organization, well defined as that, well documented. She wants to defund the police. She wants open borders. She's against businesses, ran Amazon out of New York, which would have brought in tens of thousands of jobs, has open brothels on her streets in Brooklyn, does nothing about it. She said the earth was going to end in 12 years. And so we've only got 3 years to live, John, because that was when she came in. She doesn't want to have kids and bring them up in this environment. It's the only smart thing I've ever heard her say, because we want to get rid of that gene pool. She's against capitalism. She's a communist. And she tells people it's okay to steal if you're hungry.
She also, remember, Ted, she also said that we need to impeach Donald Trump for what he might do.
That's right. What he might do. So,
future crime.
And so, God help us if the people in this country, and she's got a huge following, and they know not what they're asking for, because what you're asking for is a transformation of America, and the American dream will not be there for anybody, and this country will change. Can you imagine her as president on national security?
I don't want to imagine that going into I'm going fishing this weekend. I just want to focus on that.
No, you won't be.
I'll think about it Monday when I come
when
back.
Carolyn and I were in England several years ago, and I think I brought this up on the show, they've got a lot of nice waterways, but you don't see the boats on them like you see here. And I asked somebody in their socialist country, why don't you guys, how come I don't see boats? And they said, well, we can't afford it. And I said, well, is it the price of fuel? And they says, oh, no, that's not a problem. It's the permit fees. Back then, this was probably in the early 2000s, they had to pay $5,000 a year for the right to use their waterways. That's
we don't want to see that here. Well, that's going to do it for us today, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you have a great weekend.
Yep.
Like what we're doing, share what we're doing far and wide. Ted, take us out.
No, we've got a cause here, as you've heard us say many times. It's educate, motivate, and activate people. These things are real. These things will not go away that the left wants to instill on the American people. We are at a pause on their agenda right now, but it's not gone away. They've put their wheelbarrow with all their policy ideas and put a tarp over it. And so stay educated, and we'll see you on Monday. Have a great weekend.
Peace out, everybody. Yeah, they